Welcome back everyone, Draskyl here, bringing you another replay commentary of yours truly. This time around it's going to be a Shadow Shaman in the mid lane. This is a hero that I've been experimenting with for a little while now. Got a couple of games under my belt and I feel it has a lot of potential. Just wanted to talk to you guys about the hero's strengths, what he's good at, what he's not so good at, and more or less just the way that I like to play him in my pub games. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and just start the game up. My matchup this game is going to be a Shadow Fiend. And Shadow Fiend can be a bit tricky even if you have good base damage. If the guy gets to level 3 as Shadow Fiend, your lane can get a bit tricky because raises mean that he can CS pretty freely, and he'll be able to push the wave out against most heroes. But what we're going to try to do is just keep him down as much as we can, try to get denies, harass as much as possible, because if you guys haven't noticed, I have an 86 average base damage, but my actual damage range is 83 to 90. So I hit really hard. I got 4 base armor, and I have almost 700 health. Now, the weaknesses of the early game is my attack range is not really good. It's only 400, right? So that's not ideal. But the way that you can circumvent the attack range being as big of an issue is you kind of wait for the person to trade with you, and then as soon as they attack, you try to attack them or throw an Ether Shock or something like that. And most of the time, you're going to get at least one hit off, or you're going to get the damage from the Ether Shock off. The other part about this spell is it's 140 damage at level 1 for 95 mana. Now, I will stress that in my experience, it's always been better to use Ether Shock to just harass the opponent than it is to actually go for CS, unless that is a range creep. So the range creep has the highest value of any creep in the lane, and if you have to shock to get it, I understand that, because obviously at level 1, it's only going to hit 1 unit. So which means you can't use the Ether Shock until level 3 to harass and CS simultaneously. Just something important to keep in mind. So we're going to fast forward here, get ourselves into the laning phase. Now again, I should be helping my team with the runes, but this is a really bad habit I have of just sitting here and just wanting to get the block. So we're going to get our block on, open up the CS so you guys can see. And you can see I outblock him a bit. And as soon as I walk into the lane, I throw an Ether Shock. Just boom, straight away. I'm going to drop my ward in the high ground. If he sees it, you know, whatever, it's fine. I just really want that ward because it's going to allow me basically to always be able to see him even if he's standing up the hill. And when you're a mid player and you don't have a ward, it's really hard to trade effectively. Now you'll note that my wave is pushing in really hard. I get another zap off, and I'm already sending out a healing salve, right? So I already have the regen to come back in the lane, whereas this guy, let's just check his player perspective, he has no regen left. Don't know if he has a salve on the way or not, but he's pretty much only level 1, and he's only gotten 1 creep worth of EXP. Being able to pressure like this in the early game against a hero like Shadow Fiend is great, because his base damage isn't so hot. So he's 45 to 51, right? That gives him an average damage of 48, which is not, it's not phenomenal. You know, you compare that to mine at level 2, which is 89 average damage. I mean, we're looking at close to double what he hits for. So our main goal is not only just to harass him, but to try to get as many denies as we can. I will say from a personal standpoint, I don't feel like I played the first 2 waves particularly well. Like, I gave him a fair amount, and I should not allow him to get nearly as much CS as he has gotten up until this point. But you'll note that once I get to his tower and the creeps start going off, or start going onto the tower, I'll be able to just deny a lot of creeps, and then he'll suffer for it. So, for now, because I do have that damage lead, I'm going to be able to just deny a ton of creeps, and he's going to be pretty unhappy about it. So we just walk up, we're playing super aggressive, we're not trying to give him anything for free. At this point, he's only gotten 4 CS, and right now I'm 5 and 4. So it's not like, it's not a perfect lane, but I would say it's going okay. And we have the lane control back in our favor. So I'm not totally unhappy. I actually go for the shock there. I think I did this because I was kind of getting close to my bottle, and I wanted to contemplate getting the 2-minute rune. And that's also why I popped the salve here. I did eat a lot of raises in this lane, though. Probably should not have gotten hit by nearly as many of those. So I throw out a shackle, it's just a little bit of damage. Nothing crazy, not trying to get too fancy. Just really, really want that bottle. So I'm only about 4 gold away. And once I get it, I actually remember this game specifically because I had gotten, like, ridiculously unlucky with runes. Like, I don't think I got a single one after I got the bottle. this bottle ends up being like almost a complete waste of money because I just, for the life of me, cannot get a rune to spawn on my side of the map. So, it's a bit unfortunate, but I still end up winning the lane, even without the use of runes. And you can see, like, my denies, I'm really focusing on them. And when you're in the mid lane, denies are almost more important than getting the CS itself. So I check top rune, I notice it's not there. And I check him just to see if he had a rune or if I think there's a chance that he had one. And I'm still throwing out that Ether Shock. And you guys saw it there, like he threw out a raise, I threw out a shock. I'm not taking a hit without hitting him as well. Because if I hit him and he doesn't hit me, then I win. If he hits me and I hit him, then I still win because I just deal more damage than he does, unless we're getting hit by multiple raises. So I'm always taking the favorable trade. And the favorable trade is what allows me to kind of like crush the lane. You'll notice that right now he's only 5-3 and I'm 18-10. The reason why I get so far ahead of him so quickly is because I abuse my base damage and I get denies where other heroes are going to have a difficult time getting him as cleanly as a Shadow Shaman. But this hero just hits way too hard to contest. Like 94 damage at 3.5 minutes into the game. That is not too shabby, to say the least. So I've got my raindrops. To be honest, if I play this lane again, I would probably skip the raindrops and just go back for boots. Because once you get 6, you want to start thinking about the solo kill. And the only way you're going to get the solo kill really with Shadow Shaman is if you have those boots. Shadow Fiend runs faster than me, just at a base value. I'm like 285 base. I think he's something like 300 or something like that. Actually, we can just check since he's right here. So yeah, he's 317, right? Which means he has a pretty substantial bonus in movement speed. And him having that movement speed means that it's very unlikely that I will be able to get a ward trap and then a shackle on top of that. So while we're on the subject, if you're not a Shadow Shaman player, I need to explain a couple of things about just the hero in general, not even in the mid-roll in particular, but I like to skill Shackle because it does damage, right? So this skill does damage. Hex does not do damage. The other reason why I skip Hex is because it costs a lot of mana, and right now, I don't have any bottle charges, right? Like 4-minute rune, I'm pretty sure this guy also just got. Okay, so he's got the rune. I don't have the rune. The only way I'm going to have mana for my spells is if I figure out a clarity, right? So because this is a 1v1 lane, no one's going to stun me out of my shackle. And because no one's going to stun me unless someone TPs, I want the duration of the shackle because it goes up for 0.75 per rank. So even though the Hex scales the same, the Hex ends up costing more mana, and it also doesn't deal any DPS whatsoever. So in regards of getting a solo kill, I have a tendency to favor Shackle. If you're in a game where you think that you're going to get ganked, and you don't want to you don't want to put more points in a Shackle, you can leave it at 1. There's nothing wrong with that. You can skill the Hex, and that's fine. But you're probably going to end up having to get Arcanes a lot earlier to sustain your mana pool. And it's going to be you're going to deal a bit less damage, but you're going to have more crowd control. So once you get the wards, the Hex ends up winning out with the Arcanes. But before that, if you don't have Arcanes, and you're going for different itemization, which I end up doing this game, I just don't skill the Hex until later. The other thing, too, before we move on, I actually can't see the cast range for some reason. Okay, now I can see it. So if you notice, like the shackle range, it's pretty short, right? So this is why I was talking about getting the boots. Because without boots, the chances of me being able to walk close enough to that guy to not only drop wards but shackle him at the same time is pretty unlikely, right? It's going to be hard for me to get in that close. So that's why I really think that getting the raindrops was a bit of a mistake. Sure, it keeps me safe, but it doesn't allow me to kill him. And I'm getting really close to that level 6. So ideally, I want to have the boots as I hit 6, and then I want to either be able to push the tower right away, or I want to be able to kill the mid, and then I want to push the tower off of that. I would say as a general rule, I don't like dropping wards if they don't result in an objective in the early game, especially if I'm playing a core Shadow Shaman, right? So as a support, it's not as bad because your wards are more or less your livelihood in a team fight and in a push. If I do it as a core, then I'm kind of on cooldown, right? But if I do it as a support, that cooldown doesn't matter as much because the team isn't investing as much into my particular hero. So the downtime isn't as important. But because I am a core this game, I'm going to try really hard to not drop my wards needlessly, and I'm going to try to not drop them in a way that doesn't result in me getting some structural damage, at the very least. That's one of the most important parts of playing core Shadow Shaman, is that you are a core. And a lot of people that play this hero, even in the mid-roll, they have a tendency to like run around the map, they try to gank, which is fine, but try not to drop your wards if you're not getting building damage. That would be like my main concern. Obviously dropping it for like Roshan is fine. I've seen people stack for themselves and drop wards there too to get further ahead. Depending on the game, that might be okay too, but my personal preference is it's not ideal. So I got my bracer, I got my boots. I keep walking into raises, definitely not my best mid play, but we're still comfortably ahead of this guy. We even pre-rune top, and we didn't see the rune at all. So now I'm gonna wait for my 2 salves. I just want to be sitting at high health all the time. No reason to give this guy a kill opportunity. Mainly because, you know, I know I'm ahead of him, right? So I'm controlling the lane, maybe even a bit more than I should. I probably could just drop the wards and just like push the lane out right now. But I didn't want to because I was only sitting at half health and I saw a couple of people missing. So because of that, I'm playing it conservatively. If I did this again, I would probably just push regardless. Because even if I die, if I get the wards down and I get damage on the tower, it's not a huge deal to me if I end up going down for that trade. I'm actually okay with it. So we're still waiting for the salves. We're gonna fast forward a tiny bit to play this at 2 times. But yeah, I'm lane locking because I don't want the SF to show up and get free EXP and gold. And plus, getting denies does give me experience as well. And hitting level 10 is actually fairly important because we're gonna get an EXP talent here later on. So I would say, playing this lane a second time, I would have dropped the wards already, and I would have probably had almost a second set of wards off cooldown. So that gives you like a good idea of how much time I didn't end up, you know, using the wards, right? Because they're a 2-minute cooldown. But I'm level 9 at 8.5 minutes, so I'm very, very leveled. I tried to go in for a kill on this guy, but he's on to me. He knows what I'm up to. I got an extra salve, he eats my raindrop there. And this guy, I guess he just... No, he had mana. I pop my salve here and it just gets knocked off, and I'm not really looking to fight here because I've already expended my wards. So my wards are getting the tower low. Not quite in deny range. I believe it's just out of deny range. Yeah, 188 health. So they can't deny the tower, and I got damage on it. So we're looking at potentially a 10.5 minute, 11-minute tower if I drop my wards like as soon as they're up. But for now, we're going to hop to the shrine. Shadow Fiend's still pretty far behind us. We're going to hit this one up, and I believe we go straight blink this game because I'm sitting on a lot of money. And I maxed Shackles, so I don't really need mana boots yet. So we're just counter pushing what he's doing. We're going to check the rune again, and we don't get it. This is actually probably the most unlucky game I think I've ever played in regards to like how many runes I was able to get. But you'll notice that even without the runes, I'm still more or less just destroying this guy. Like I have as many denies almost as he has CS, so I'm not like too concerned. So my wards are up. Rubik is actually a really he's a nuisance for a hero like Shadow Shaman mid. I have to zap the card there so he doesn't steal my wards. And this guy actually ends up getting a deny on it, which is like... It had 10 HP, right? My whole volley hits. I thought it would kill the tower, and it didn't. So again, pretty unlucky. Didn't do enough damage. But the tower is dead, and that's what matters. So now, I believe we go back to base. Fast forward a little bit here. I'm actually denying my wards from that Shadow Fiend too, so he can't get them. So I'm level 10 now. I got my EXP talent. I'm looking at top lane and I'm like, that lane doesn't really look like a place I want to be. I noticed that we have a ward bottom. And I want to be here because my wards are up in 1 minute. So that means like 2 creep wave spawns, I'll be able to ward again. We have vision behind the tower. This is an opportunity that I want to take to continue to get objectives. I always, always, always want to be pushing. The other thing that's really cool about this movement too is that because I went bottom and I TP'd, they have no vision. I was close to blink. I actually got my blink from the side shop instead of using the courier. So there's basically no chance that the enemy team is going to know that I have blink here. They would have to have some next level anticipation to be able to know that this is coming. So miscommunication here. He Chronos, I thought I would be able to just blink shackle him, but doesn't end up working out. And this Phantom Lancer is not that scary because he doesn't have the Fusel yet, so I'm just kind of walking it off at the moment. Pop my bottle charges, and I think I ended up making a mistake here. This is actually the real PL. Like, if I had been paying closer attention, I would have just immediately turned around and shackled that guy, and he would just be dead. But yeah, I noticed it too late. And we forced somewhat of a reaction, but it doesn't really end up favoring us. So, the movement wasn't ideal. My wards are up in about 5 seconds here. But I really don't want to have to drop them in a fight. That's a consistent theme that you're going to see this game. I do drop them, I think, a handful of times to get kills. But as a rule, I try as hard as I can not to. Just because it's so important for you to have them for objective taking. So the PL is behind our tower. I have wards up. I have Blink Hex. So I get the Hex on that guy. We get the Shackle. Free kill. No big deal. That guy was really overextended. I'm not sure why he was so far up. But now that I have my wards, I really want to push this lane out. And again, I'm not dropping them needlessly. Like, there was no point in me putting down the wards there because that guy was just an easy kill.
Radiant's top tower has fallen.
So you can see, like, mid tower is already dead. It's 3 minutes since the mid tower has been taken. So my wards have been up for a little bit longer than they should have been, most likely. But defending this for the enemy team is impossible, right? Like, they have some wave clear, yes, but they would have to have the heroes in the lane clearing the creeps before we were at the tower. Functionally speaking, Shadow Shaman is the strongest when he's fighting around his ult, as are a lot of heroes. But what that means is, if the enemy team is running at you before you get the towers, that's when you feel the most pressure. But the enemy team doesn't really have heroes to do that in this game. You know, some of the natural counters to Shadow Shaman, you know, Clockwork comes to mind as one of the most difficult to deal with because he can hookshot you, he doesn't need any items, and he forces you to buy an item to keep alive just against him, right? Like, if you don't have a Force Staff, Clockwork just kills you. Lucky for us, Clockwork is not a meta hero right now. Almost no one plays that thing. So because he's not in the meta, it also adds strength to our pick, because that means that we're not getting killed by some offlaner support hero, right? Other heroes that buy blinks that can just jump right on top of us are always going to be scary. Silences are tough to deal with. Zeus Aghanims can be really frustrating too, because we almost can't use Shackle and are a lot of times forced into BKB. But in this game, it was pretty smooth sailing, more or less. I mean, it's a 10 to 10, but we got Roche, we got the 2 tier 1s. I'm looking at, like, continuing pushing the bottom lane. I'm sitting with my team a lot, even though my wards aren't actually up, because I want to get damage on the towers. As a general rule, I like to go for the tier 1s first, but eventually what's going to happen is you're going to have to high ground them. So one of the biggest mistakes, I think, that a lot of people make, not even just on Shadow Shaman, but maybe just in all games in general, is that they'll try to take every single outer tier tower, like, systematically. They'll take all the tier 1s, then they'll take all the tier 2s, then they'll take one tier 3, kill shrines, and then try to high ground. So I think that as it's not wrong in some games, but what'll happen is it'll take you X amount of time to get all those objectives, right? Let's say it takes you 25 to 30 minutes to get all of those things. What happens if the enemy team has good high ground defense at 25 to 30 minutes? Then you can't actually end it. Even if you've taken all the outer tier towers, even if you've taken one tier 3, what if you just simply can't break the base, right? Because the enemy team got enough items to be able to sit on their high ground and feel comfy, and you can't crack it. Right? There's a couple of things you can do to deal with that, but the main thing that I love about Shadow Shaman is that I don't have to kill every single tier 2, okay? Like, killing the tier 1s is nice because they don't have backdoor protection and they're more or less free. But what I like about Shadow Shaman is that you can go in and just kill the tier 3 really, really early, and then threaten the racks even earlier. So instead of adding another 10 to 15 minutes onto your high ground push, you end up killing the racks at like 20 minutes. And that is very hard for a lot of teams to deal with. So I was a little slow on my CC there. I probably could have saved my Disruptor player if I had been paying closer attention. And I actually let the Rubik get my wards, which is another mistake. That should basically never happen. I think it happens like once the entire game, and that's about it. So at this point, you know, we're level 13. It's 17 minutes in. Our levels are fine. My Naga player kind of suicides here. But, you know, we're pretty much done. Like, we can't do anything else. We've dealt as much damage as we possibly can. It wasn't a good engagement for us because the tower should be dead. So it's a small setback. Small setback. Game plan's still pretty much on. We want to try to high ground as soon as humanly possible. We're going to the top lane now. We got 3,200 gold in our inventory. Our next, and this is the most important item. This is the actual most important item. Blink is for obvious reasons. Helps you set up for kills. Helps you get in position to drop the wards. But Aghanims is what makes this build functional. And the reason why it works so well is because when you get Aghanim Scepter, it doesn't actually say it on the... okay, it says it on the actual ability itself. So your wards gain 225 attack range. And that is just massive. Basically what ends up happening, and not only do they get the attack range, but they get the split attack too, which means your wards are going to be hitting 2 targets all the time. It means that ranged heroes can't walk up and hit your wards anymore because they will get hit by the wards. You cannot outrange the wards unless you're like, say, a sniper with that item. And that's what allows you to just straight up end the game. So we secure ourselves another kill here. We're really, really close to Aghanims. This guy is going to go for a little bit of a rollout here. We're just going to TP. But the Aghanims is what really makes this build kind of come together. And the later your Aghanims is, the more difficult it's going to be to make this kind of thing work. Now you'll notice it's only 18 minutes in, and yes, I did have a pretty strong laning phase, but I don't think it's unreasonable to assume that you could have, let's say, 6 or 7 CS a minute as a mid, right? I think that's pretty easy to accomplish. Even if my lane wasn't great, I could probably still get Blink and Aghanims every single game by 25 minutes. Unless I'm really, really, really having a bad time. It would be like an uncharacteristically bad performance from at least my own perspective if I didn't have these items by that time. And then your next big benchmarks are 15 is your cast range talent. Level 20, you get the talent that makes it so your wards take 1 more hit to kill. That's also another amazing utility for this build, because it essentially increases the effective health of your wards by 50%. And we're talking about wards that at level 15 have an attack range of like 700 and also hit really, really hard. So again, we're conserving. We're not going to drop our wards on this guy. What I want more than anything right now is to just get to their base, and then I want to drop wards on their high ground. That's all I want. Because if I get to do that, it basically means we win. Or at the very least, we get a set of racks. So I'm forced into dropping my wards here because of the aggression. And you'll notice my wards are actually hitting multiple heroes. So we get the Rubik and we get the Pudge on top of that. So they force me to drop my wards because I'm gonna die. And I would rather drop the wards and kill them than I would obviously, you know, die and have to go back to base and then rinse and repeat this whole process. So the benefits of taking the fight and winning are that obviously we get a lot of EXP, getting closer to the level 3 wards, which is great, getting closer to our cast range talent, which is also great. But more importantly, getting to 25. That's like the real we're gonna carry the game now wards. So it's 50 wards attack damage, right? If you notice, the ability itself is 50 damage at level 1, 75 at level 2, and 100 at level 3. That means our level 25 talent effectively gives us 2 extra levels on our ward skill. Which is just absolutely ridiculous. Like, it's far and away for this structure build, it's the best talent on the tree. Just hands down. And not only is it going to hit for 150, but there's 10 of them. And they split shot. So it's 10 wards hitting for 150 damage, attacking from 700 plus range, and hitting multiple units at the same time. I don't think I need to do the math for you guys to tell you that that is just absurd amounts of DPS. I do pick up the tome here. I really want the level 3 wards. It's a really big increase to DPS.
Radiant's middle tower is under attack.
And my wards are up in a little bit, but I'm waiting for the book to get to my hero before I want to drop the wards again. And, you know, in a perfect world, we don't even have to drop the wards for the tower. But I think what ends up happening here is we get into an altercation. I should probably just go drop the wards right now. Like, push the wave in, drop the wards in the tower anyway, and just put them back on cooldown. My team is still kind of skirmishing over here. We're losing sight a bit as to what we want to do in the game. I should really have just dropped wards in the tier 2. Like, this is taking so freaking long. I'm being very, very stubborn. I absolutely should have dropped my wards. But I'm playing like solely around the idea that I don't want to drop my wards in fights. I just don't. And because I wasn't the one in immediate danger, I just didn't drop them at all. And that's just as bad. So that's a mistake on my part. I should absolutely have just either dropped the wards in the fight or dropped the wards in a tower. And that way at least I get something out of my team's dying. Whereas now my wards are just up. And I'm not really getting anything out of it. So that was definitely a mistake. We're walking to a side lane. We want to push it out.
Dire's middle tower is under
Also trying to get some EXP. Maybe working towards that cast range talent. So I want to fight mid. I have wards. I think I realized after that whole mid thing that it was just kind of silly for me not to have dropped them. We're blinking into a good position. We get the shackle on the Pango while he's in that static storm. He just dies.
They're unstoppable.
And now we're halfway to level 20. So wards are still up. I probably could have had 2 ward cooldowns in the time that it took us to get back down this mid lane. And that's why it's important to remember that you're not supposed to hold wards as much as I am. Like, it is important to hold them sometimes, but you gotta place them eventually. You can't just sit on the cooldown the entire game. So that's a shame on me. And you can see, like, even now I'm holding it. I'm like, I really want to drop it on the tier 3 tower. Because my focus is getting a Rax, like, around this time. 25-30 minutes, that's ideally when I want to get that building. So we heard the Pango ult. I blink back, trying to keep myself safe. We get a nice chrono here, but the problem is I blinked away. So I actually can't... I can't really get anything off of this. So my team is fighting. And again, I still haven't placed my wards. Like, this is actually almost 5 minutes straight of me not being able to place my wards. I was playing way too conservatively. So they go for me here. Now that I'm under threat, I'm gonna drop my wards. You can see now how powerful they are. Like, if I had just placed the wards in the fight earlier, there's a good chance that we would have just won the fight. That's just one set of words. But yeah, we got a fair chunk of change out of that.
Haste.
So we're gonna fast forward during the time that we're dead. Our guy's going Roshan. We are almost alive. So our next item on the table is going to be Refresher Orb. Things to remember, level 3 wards with Refresher take, I believe, 1,575 mana to cast. Fortunately for me, I get an Arcane Rune. So with an Arcane Rune, it's going to reduce the mana cost, and it's going to reduce the cooldown on my wards. So I'm pretty happy with this find. This is a really lucky rune for me to get. If at all possible, I want to have my Refresher before we push. So we get a nice pick off here on the Shadow Shaman. He overextended. I got my Refresher money. The Rubik steals Ether Shock from my hero. And they're catching up the Pango on the top as well. I think I'm close enough to Shackle here. Yeah, I am. So we got a couple of picks. The Shadow Fiend has buyout. Obviously, we don't know that. This is a replay, so we can see that he has buyout from the player perspective. So we got our Arcane popped. Our wards only cost 420 mana now, so we're saving a lot. But now we just walk up, and we drop the wards, and it's going to get real difficult for the enemy team. Also, one thing I want to point out to you, notice where I place them. what a lot of people do is they'll place them like on this ramp, or they'll place them up here, or they place them down here. The reason that you place them where I did, and obviously we have Aghanims on top of this too. So like these wards, let me see if I can actually... Okay, so these things have 775 attack range. Which means that if I put them behind the tower, there is no one on the enemy team that can approach the tower to defend. Because this thing has a longer range than every single hero on the enemy team. Even a Shadow Fiend with a Dragon Lance would not be able to hit these wards. Or sorry, 875. My math is bad. So it's 875 attack range, which means you actually just can't outrange them. I think Sniper is genuinely the only hero in the game that would be able to do that. So this is why you place them behind the tower. Because if they're in front, that's more of a buffer for them to like stand next to the tower and be able to attack. But if I place them here, there's no physical way that they can get in to defend. It will hit from any direction, no matter where you approach from. But yeah, you can see my words are even hitting the shrines in like other spots. Our other lanes are getting pushed in right now. You can see like they just can't really fight the wards. Like their whole team has to be there. So my Void drops a Chrono. I get another set of wards out. I get a nice Shackle onto the PL. Get some ward focusing going on. But they can't walk up here, right?
Dominating, I guess.
But as long as I'm fighting around my wards, I'm more or less safe. I kind of get too far away here.
Less than 4 kill. Double kill.
Too greedy. Didn't have to blink in like that. Should have just kept fighting by the wards. So we're dead again. It's not like a huge deal that I die here, but it is definitely a pointless death. I gained nothing from this. So we're waiting to respawn. We buy our Boots of Travel. Like this inventory right here, actually very lucky to get 2 Arcane Runes. This inventory is more or less your endgame. Sometimes you're going to need BKB. I'd say other items you could buy in like an ultra late game scenario would be like Hex maybe. But this is like the core inventory. Maybe Octarine is something that you want to consider too, if like all you're doing is dropping the wards and then just dying afterwards or something like that. But this is like the... I have a finished farming build. It's only 30 minutes in, I have all these items. My CS is not incredible by any means. This is barely over 5 CS a minute. Almost anyone can get this. And we're not even level 25 yet either. So there's still some Dota to be played. Oh, the other item I forgot to mention is Aether Lens. So that item is very strong because it allows us to blink initiate from very long distances, and it also makes it safer for us to place wards because we don't have to be as close. So if you ever feel like you need that cast range, then absolutely just pick it up. So this guy hooks me. I knew that he was going to hook me basically as soon as I got stunned, so I was kind of watching out for it. Unfortunately, my wards kind of get chronoed here, so they're not doing a ton of damage. But they still have a really hard time approaching. Our refresher's up in 17 seconds, so we'll be able to place a second set if we need to. And I actually blink into my wards here, which is a little bit unfortunate. But this whole time while the fight's going on, like, their base is just dying. So, like, no matter if we win or lose this fight, it doesn't really make much of a difference because the structural damage has pretty much just been finished. I get a Shackle on the peel. We had a nice ward in the high ground there and plus some creeps, so we had plenty of vision. And we still have our refresher, but I think I'm actually saving my ward cooldown. So the reason I don't pop the refresher is obviously I didn't need it. We still ended up winning the fight. But if I can wait for my wards to be up just naturally, then I'll have 2 sets of wards for the next push, and there's going to be a tier 2 top. So that means I can expend 1 set of wards in the tier 2 if I need to, and then another set on the racks immediately. Like, there's no downtime between that push. So that's why I hold my refresher there. So we're 25, we got the 50 ward damage talent, which effectively increases the ward DPS by 50%. And we have 2 sets of them, and they attack from 875 range. So we're walking down top. If they don't defend this, I actually don't even need to drop wards. That's the beauty of Shadow Shaman, is that if you understand when to hold your wards when you're pushing, like if the team's not going to contest like this, I don't need to waste my wards on it. And now we can continue to push, and we're forcing them to defend into double wards, which is just not possible. Like let's get a freeze frame on this. So we're just going to look at the ability for a second. Okay. So each Mass Serpent ward summons 10 wards. I've summoned 20, obviously, because I have a refresher. Each one of those wards hits for 150 damage and has an attack range of 875. And they take 3 hits to kill from a hero, right? So we're talking about 3,000 damage a volley. Like every single one hitting is 3,000 damage. Obviously, that's unmitigated. And then it's hitting multiple heroes from 875 range. You would be hard-pressed to find any hero or heroes in the game that will be able to defend against this. Even if you are a sniper who can outrange the wards, you have to hit each one of them 3 times. So if you get the items as quickly as I did in a game like this, it is very, very difficult for the enemy team to play into you once you have the wards down. Now, people are going to watch this video and say, okay, well, so how do I deal with this? Well, the way that you deal with it is obviously you gank the Shadow Shaman mid because he has 285 movement speed and he has no escape mechanisms. The other thing is that you can force him to drop wards by just running into him, right? That's how you play against Shadow Shaman. There are some heroes that get stronger if they're allowed to set up. Like think Venomancer wards, Shadow Shaman wards, things like that. If they are able to get the setup, then fighting into them becomes much more difficult. But if you take the fight to them first, by like initiating, have blank heroes with stuns or whatever, then you force him to drop wards not on an objective, then you're delaying the game, right? Because every single ward cast is a 2-minute cooldown. So every time you make him cast that spell, you're buying time, you're buying time, you're buying time. And the later the game goes, obviously wards will eventually fall off because people will get tankier. They'll be able to kill the wards quicker. You know, Crimson Guards can be a pain for Shadow Shaman. If the hero has a really good lane and gets an early Crimson, that can be a nightmare for you to deal with because it actually applies to the tower as well. But in a game like this, their only Crimson buyer is Pango. He didn't go that build. They didn't run into me nearly enough, so they didn't like take the fight to me. And I think in this scenario, there is no defense. There's none. Like, once I get these wards down, it's over. So you guys will get to watch the havoc. Like you can see the enemy team's fighting, but look at how fast their tower dies. Like the racks are just getting absolutely annihilated. Like there's nothing they can do. The PL goes in to try to kill the wards, and he can't even kill them.
Double kill. Killing spree. Dominating performance. Ultra kill.
So I get hooked in, but all I'm going to do is just run back to where the wards are. They faded. I got 6k gold. It's a 15k lead. It's not really much the enemy team can do right now. And I get a very, very fortuitous regen, so I don't even have to go back to base. But this game is more or less just a showcase of what a hero like Shadow Shaman is capable of from the mid-roll, and just understanding that itemizing and picking talents to choose around a specific style of play can be really, really powerful. So every single thing that we did this game, like we'll just do a quick recap of what happened. So we won our lane. We get level 10, we get the experience talent. The experience talent is, I would say, mandatory. Even if you're having a hard game, I would still get the experience talent because you need to get 20 and 25. Those are like your really big power spikes. The 15 is the cast range, ease of placing wards, easier to get shackles and hexes. You can buy an ether lens in your item progression somewhere if you feel like you're having a really strong game. Then you get the Serpent Ward's max HP. This allows your wards to have 50% more effective health, so instead of taking 20 hits to kill all 10 of your wards, it's now going to take 30. And then the 50 wards attack damage, that one's kind of self-explanatory. More ward damage. And then the item progression goes as Blink Dagger, into Aghanims, into Refresher, and then whatever else you need for the game after that. Now, if you're getting like hard countered and shut down, and you don't feel like you can make it to one of these items, sometimes buying like a Force Staff is good, sometimes buying a Yule's is good, but remember that you're buying those items to bridge the gap, to get to the other items. You never want to deviate so far from this like 3 set of items that you can't get there anymore. If you deviate too far from this, the build will no longer work, and you won't have the items fast enough for it to matter. All these things are under the conditions that you can have the game go at a similar pace as this one did. Now that doesn't mean you have to crush your lane as hard as I did in this game. It just means you have to have Blink Aghanims by around 25 minutes. Just that is going to be enough. And also understanding that you're dropping wards on towers, but don't be as stubborn as I am. Don't be like holding your ward cooldown for like 6 minutes. That's awful. If I was playing with myself this game and I saw me holding on to wards that long, I would have rage pinged myself. So don't do that. But the game, pretty much, it's in the bag. You know, it's a 15k lead. They're Megit. It's 34 minutes in. There's no possible way they're going to be able to defend the next set of wards. So I think we've more or less just covered everything we need to cover in this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it very much. Thank you all so much for tuning in. If you guys could, give the YouTube channel a follow. It's still relatively new. Trying to hit that 1,000 subscriber mark. Trying to get our channel name. Working on the channel art. You guys can also catch me live on twitch.tv/Draskyl. It's Draskyl. And on Twitter as well, Draskyl Dota 2 with a TWO. Once again, thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.